Hello and welcome to the third in our series of 6 questions. Um, this time I'm joined by my lovely colleague Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hello. Hello.
Um, just before we start, just wanted to say a thank you to everyone for your response to the last 2 sessions that we've done. They've had some really positive feedback, so we're very grateful to everybody for that. Just to remind you, the first one was on addiction, and the second one we did was on chronic pain and trauma. And today I'm going to be asking Nikki 6 questions on self-esteem. So, are you ready?
I am. I'm ready.
This
Yes.
is something I know is something Nikki feels very strongly about and is brilliant at helping people with. I know that already. But I'll start with the first question, which is tell me what you understand self-esteem to mean.
Yeah, okay. Self-esteem for me is about how we value and we perceive ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think that there's so much that could go on in our own environments that could impact that. The relationships we develop in early childhood, societal stuff,
Hmm.
the way we see ourselves fitting into our communities. So, and also just how we really feel about ourselves. What we may have internalized from our past and what we may believe to be true about ourselves. So sometimes it can feel with self-esteem, and what I often notice comes up a lot in client work is it feels like it's unchangeable, like it is,
Mm.
and how we feel about ourselves is set in stone.
Yeah.
And actually that's not the case. But yeah,
Yeah.
self-esteem, that's how we value ourselves. Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it, from what you said there, what I picked up on was that actually how we feel about ourselves is often messages that have been given to us about what we're meant to think about ourselves, which is really, and then like you said,
Yeah,
it becomes entrenched, doesn't it? So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's it. We absorb, we
mm,
silently absorb without even realizing we
mm,
internalize those messages and then
yeah, yeah,
follow them whole and they become who we believe we are. Um, and
yeah,
yeah, that sometimes trying to unstick that can be really challenging.
yeah. It's a slow process. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what does self-esteem look like for you personally, for Nikki?
Hmm. Self-esteem for me has been quite a journey, actually. Probably one of the biggest hurdles for me to overcome personally.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me now, self-esteem is trusting myself, actually. Um,
Right.
really listening to my intuition, listening to my gut feelings, and also showing myself kindness and compassion. So when I
Mm.
notice my inner critic and I notice those past parts of me or past voices and people that have been in my life that haven't always been good for me, being able to show those parts of myself compassion and understanding and curiosity around actually what am I needing right now if that part of that inner critic part of me is coming through strong
Mm.
rather than fighting against any of that. Yeah, having, I guess, an inner relationship, um, and also an understanding that I'm not always going to get things right, and that's okay, but not giving myself a really hard time over that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which, yeah, that still can be a challenge for me. Not in any way feel like that's something that I've completely conquered, but also being able to show myself that kindness and compassion when that does come up
Mm.
makes it a gentler process and not something that I stay stuck with.
Yeah, I can really relate to that battle. And but what I'm hearing is that you have a lot more clarity on the fact that the compassionate voice is yours and the critical voice is not necessarily yours, and that you can separate the two and make sense of those with that internal dialogue that you're having now. That's what I'm hearing. Is that
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. There's
yeah.
more of a communication line set up there
Mm,
that feels healthier. So there isn't
yeah,
that internal conflict, which is just going to add and compound that
yeah.
growth
And
time.
can be quite punishing as well, can't it? I think,
Yeah.
yeah, if you go down those rabbit holes. Yeah, thank you. So question number three is, have you always felt that you've had a healthy level of self-esteem? And if not, why not? Which you've kind of covered a little bit in the second question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that would be a hard no for me. That I haven't always had healthy self-esteem.
Hard no. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, I think for me, when I think about my self-esteem, it's school and society and the generation that I was brought up in actually that I think about a lot.
Okay.
And I mean, I grew up in the sort of Kate Moss, Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie era where all women were stick thin and encouraged to be stick thin, and
Yeah.
it was really it was glorified actually.
Mm,
So I remember growing up in that era thinking, okay, that's got to be me. That
right.
and that I developed quite an unhealthy relationship with that alone. That actually, if I wasn't that, then I wasn't good enough.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
and,
Yeah,
and
that
there was a
sounds
lot of that.
powerful.
Yeah, a lot of that played out in school as well.
Right.
In terms of being good enough to be. I mean, the school system's probably really similar now, but when I was at school, it was very much like, okay, if you achieve a certain grade or achieve a certain thing,
Mm,
you get to be in a certain class, and there was and if you were in those lower sets or those lower classes, you were really looked down upon,
yeah.
not only by your peers but by teachers. So you were everyone was well, everyone was graded, but everyone was almost like class systemed into,
Mm, yeah.
you can only achieve that much. So go into that class or into that set. And actually, what happened when I was at school is that actually meant that you could only actually achieve a certain amount of grading if
Yeah.
you were in that lower set. So for me, there was this process of, well, why bother? Because actually that nobody believes in me. That's all I'm capable of. So I'll live out that narrative. I'll live out that truth.
Oh, that's yeah. I've just got a real, as you said that, I just felt really sad. Yeah, because yeah, it's a message about being that direct comparison, isn't it, between others, and the fact that you can't go above that bar. I had the same experience at school actually. If you were in a certain sets, you could only achieve certain things, and you were written off, just written
Uh,
off.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, that whole system is almost designed for failure in a way, isn't it? Yeah, I'm really sad to hear that that was your experience. Yeah.
yeah. So I carried that with me a lot, and
Mm,
and that
mm,
when I started my training, that and my own journey and my own therapy, that really was the hardest thing for me to conquer actually, and to be able to work through.
mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, and obviously having spent the years training with you, I've witnessed that development you've evolved through your self-esteem, and I've seen you grow and flourish and believe in yourself, and I've really enjoyed watching that process and being next to you while you
yeah.
go through that process. So yeah. So on that basis, then, how this is the fourth question, how has therapy helped to access your self-belief and increase your self-esteem, specifically around therapy?
Yeah, I think for me it was the not being judged that made
Yeah.
such a huge difference for me. Being in an environment where I was simply just heard for where I was at, and not expected to be any different than that, and just
Mm,
allowed that breathing space. But also, my therapist would gently challenge me around those inner critics and those parts of me that pulled me into quite a self-deprecating place, really. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but but also because it was relational therapy and because it was long-term therapy, I got the opportunity to be able to build up such a safety and such a trust with my therapist
mm,
that when she did challenge me, I knew it came from a place of kindness.
yeah, yeah,
And I've not, you know, it's harder to get that in other relationships in the outside world because sometimes they're bringing their own stuff in, and you can trigger each other. Whereas, of course, in that therapeutic relationship, you're offered a space that's so unique, so different
Mm.
to anything I'd ever experienced.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine having a space with no judgment. It's mind blowing, isn't it?
it is, yeah, yeah.
Mind blowing. Where you can be safe to say what you need to say and feel what you need to feel. It is very unique. Absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah. From both sides, I think.
definitely,
Yeah.
and be able to
Yeah.
experience that alongside someone else.
Yeah.
You know, the same as what you're saying about the training side of things. You know, for me, being able to build up those safe relationships in
Mm.
training, and for people to be able to see me for where I was at and be okay with that, also allowed me to be okay with that too.
With you to be
Yeah,
okay.
with
Yeah.
me.
With who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
who I am and where I was at, and actually that I was um, capable of so much more. You know,
Yeah.
it's unlocked potential. I find myself saying that a lot in sessions with clients, actually, that we
Right.
all have so much unlocked potential.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we're not always given the tools and the environments in our early childhood to be able to unlock.
No.
That's what therapy did for me. I got the time, I got the space, I got such a reparative experience.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's
Changed
so
my
great.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's been good to be along for the ride alongside you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
So,
been grateful to have you there with me as well.
oh, thank you, thank you. So question 5 is what tips and tricks would you recommend to people who are trying to work on their own self-esteem?
So I'm going to go back to kindness and compassion again. It might feel
Mm,
like I'm playing the same tune a lot, but there's something about there's so important something so important in being able to offer those parts of yourself, whether that's your inner critic or whether that's voices from your past that have told you that you are a certain way, or you know, those silent messages that we've absorbed.
mm,
Um, there's something about curiosity as well,
yeah,
and being able to offer yourself a stopgap and go, actually, what's happening for me right now? What's going on? What's going on when I say that thing to myself? Or I feel that way about myself.
mm,
Um, and yeah, um, yeah, being able to offer yourself some curiosity, but also looking around you and looking at who you're surrounding yourself with.
yeah, yeah,
It can be a really huge factor in self-esteem. Because
yeah,
actually, if we don't value and if we don't value ourselves and our perception of ourselves is quite low, often that we can look around in our environment and see actually, okay, yeah, who am I surrounding myself with? Am I taking care of myself? Am I nourishing myself
mm,
with foods that make me feel good? Am
yeah,
I am I taking care of my environment? You know, what's my environment like? Is it chaotic?
mm,
Is you know who am I friends with? And actually, how do I feel when I come away from those interactions? Do I feel nourished? Do I feel energized? Or do I actually feel drained? And do those messages about
yeah,
myself continue to be true as I move away from those interactions? So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
definitely something about, yeah, who you surround yourself with. And also,
mm,
if possible, being able to open up an internal dialogue with those parts of you that don't believe you're worthy of self-confidence and worthy of self-esteem.
mm,
And what you know, who are those parts? Are they people from your past?
yeah.
Are they really real? What evidence is there to back those thoughts up?
Yeah, yeah, and I guess there's something that in there for me as well about you touched on it about that sort of mind-body connection, isn't it? It's you know you can think your way through the situation, but what's going on? Are you feeling a different way when you're with that person and you're with that person? Can you actually get in touch with that part of yourself that's feeling something? And that is that connecting the dots, joining the dots, isn't it? And seeing yourself as a whole. It's hard. It takes work if you're not used to doing that, but. I think that can be quite key too, can't it?
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good advice. Thank you. We're on our last question already. That's gone really
Yeah,
quickly. Yeah.
it
So,
has.
so number six is what would you say to someone who's considering accessing therapy to improve their self-esteem?
Hmm. I would definitely say look for what that therapist specialises in when you're seeking out therapy. I know that if you look on places like Counselling Directory and Psychology Today,
Mm,
people will put their top specialities, and
yeah.
often self-esteem and self-confidence and can be part of those specialities. So I would say definitely do some research,
Mm,
and also the majority of counsellors now offer um, an initial consultation call. So
yeah.
ask the question and find out, how they might be able to help you with self-esteem issues. And be as honest as you can be in that first initial consultation call, because that gives your therapist or future possible therapist an idea of where you're at, and
Mm,
and they can be honest with about how they feel that they can support you. Um, so I'd definitely say that do your research on in what they specialise in. Um, and also I would say ask yourself the questions that when you're going to seek out therapy, what's important for you? What is it? Is it important that they're male, female? Is it, an age range for the therapist, and what you really want a good outcome for you to be
yeah. Yeah.
in the therapy.
Mm,
Um, yeah, because I mean, of course, in our training, relational therapy, a big part of the work is about therapeutic relationship, and there's
absolutely.
so much healing and so much
Yeah.
repairing that can be done in the relationship. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say look at your therapist's, or potential future therapist's training and their background,
Mm,
and where they've come from, and what type of training they've had, and don't be afraid to ask them questions about that.
yeah. Yeah.
If you're emailing them or having a chat with them before you decide to book with them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good advice. It's really is about that very basic connection with someone in the room, isn't it? It can open up so many doors for someone if it's right for them. It's right for both of them. So yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. That was brilliant.
You're
Really interesting. Thanks, Nikki. And it's clear that this whole process works. That understanding where you've been and where you're going to and what you need from that is key to being on this journey and turning things around, I think. So yeah, so I hope everyone enjoys this six questions. And if you want to access any more information about this topic or any of the other topics, you can do that on our social media on Instagram and Facebook, and there are blogs on our website as well. So yeah, we hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for the amazing questions.
No problem. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.